he'll try to roll down the window, and she'll be like, I'll hear all this, and I look over there, and she's like trying to, press this button and everything. I'm like, what are you doing? She's, well, I can't roll down the window. I'm like, okay, it's locked. Hang on just a second. You think that's gonna make it? Anyhow, so we've got our car, and she says, oh, there's something wrong with the door lock button, and I look, and there's a big hole in the door. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, I don't know. So,
what?
How strong is your finger? Because you put a hole in the door. Anyhow, so that's what we got fixed. They're fixing that, and then I had a recall too. There's some kind of safety mechanism. They're trying to figure out what the heck happened. So
it's good to just take care of those all at once.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. I mean, I have a BMW, and I've never had a car like this before. It's like the best car I ever had.
Yeah.
And the service on it is outstanding. I mean, they treat me like a king. I'm driving this X3.
Give you a rental.
Yeah. Oh man, brand new. It's got 2,200 miles on it.
Yeah.
This is how they get you though. They're like, you're gonna take it home to your wife, and she's gonna drive it to the store and come back and go, oh my God, we got to get this. So, that's how I got the last.
We got to get started here. Okay, welcome to Over 50 Starting Over, and I'm Barry Edwards.
I'm Merle Garrison,
and this is a show about life hacks and getting through this world with all of the changes that happen to us, whether we like it or not, after 50. And so both professionally and personally. What's interesting is we got our first official mail-in question this time. Hey, you know what? Before we get to it, I wanted to just do a quick thing. Remember when I was telling you about the arthritis in my shoulder?
Yeah.
So I separated that when I was in high school wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling, right? I remember that.
The doctor told me back then I'd eventually get arthritis in it. Well, years later, I played volleyball for years until I had to stop because just the wear and tear on it. I thought I was going to need surgery, but I went into physical therapy, did that for 6 weeks, and was able to get by without surgery. But so I quit volleyball. I really couldn't do that on a league anymore. And, but I kept up with those physical therapy exercises in my own exercise routines. Nonetheless, over the last year, maybe two, but especially the last year, I developed arthritis really to the point where it's crippling my workouts. And I'm just like, I will not give up. I'll lessen that weight to almost nothing and do repetitions. Anyways, I got this idea. I take a lot of different vitamins, and, one of these days I'd like to do a lot more about the vitamins. But right now I just want to throw this out because this was just amazing. And one of them is fish oil. We should all take fish oil.
I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about fish oil.
Yeah. And you need the omega-3.
That's
it. As a matter of fact, I have it right here.
Wow.
And okay, well, I'm one though, like if it says to take 3 a day or something, I'm still taking 1 of everything because I eat food too,
Yeah.
And and I only basically take my vitamins once in the morning, and then I don't think about it again.
Right.
And I don't want to bother with it again.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I thought to double up. So instead of my 1, and I'm supposed to take 3 of these a day, 3 throughout the day. Okay. I just started taking 2 in the morning instead of my 1. Buddy, over in like 2 weeks later, I noticed that was going away. I was going to the gym and working out, and this arthritis in my shoulder was lessening considerably.
Wow.
And so that was about 3 weeks ago now that I started taking these, and now I'm trying to remember to take that extra one at the end of the day too.
So fish oil, you attribute the loss of pain to the fish oil.
the lubrication of that joint.
I mean, it just makes sense, right? Lubrication. I remember having some rotator cuff issues several years ago, and it just felt like I needed to get the, proverbial can of oil and just, get it in there, way in there,
surgery, didn't you?
I did have surgery, and it was the best. Oh,
but wasn't it painful?
God. Yeah, it wasn't as painful as the actual pain before the surgery. I'm telling you, that was an eye opener.
You stayed there for a while, didn't you? That pain.
For months. I was in literal hell. I was in complete misery. In fact, I had this experience where they finally prescribed me some type of painkiller. It was an opioid, and they'd given me a sample, and it was like this first moment of, oh, thank God, wow. I can be myself again. And actually, I smiled for the first time in like 3 months. It was amazing. Shit. So this is how people get addicted to this kind of stuff.
Oh,
so yeah. I was addicted immediately. They told me to go down to the pharmacy to get my prescription, and I was happier than a clam. And I went down there, and
give me.
Oh yeah, and it was wearing off too. So I was down there all in pain, and it was a Friday night, and here I was to get my prescription, and they said, well, I told them my name and everything. They told me, we didn't get a call for this, and I panicked. And I was giving off all the signs of an
addict.
Yeah, and that this guy's trying to scam us. And anyhow, long story short, they called the physician and they got it all straightened out. But the pharmacist told me that he was getting ready to call the police. I was. Anyway, thank God that's behind me. But I feel for people going for that and through that, and any kind of shoulder pain. Man, that is way more debilitating than I ever imagined it would be.
Yeah, it certainly is. Any of your joints and back. I've had periodic, I go through periodic stretches with my lower back, pulling out my lower back. And so between joints like your shoulders or your knees and your back, yeah, man, those things are critical. And so anyways, I just wanted to quickly throw that out. And this is, I get no kickback on this, but I get these vitamins. I get all my vitamins at Puritan Pride. And you can just go to vitamins.com. Very cost effective, much more so than buying them in the store. So,
let me ask you a question, Barry, regarding vitamins, because I'm not a vitamin taker at all. And it has a lot to do with, I just don't like swallowing pills and things like that. You talked about that, your morning routine and trying to change your habits. And it's all habits. But
it is.
The show is called Over 50 Starting Over. So one thing that I've noticed being 50 is energy level. And when more energy is good. I mean, I've got my coffee here and everything. I drink a few cups a day myself. I know that's probably not the best thing, but who knows? I mean,
it depends on what week.
It is the best thing. Who knows?
You see the study, because 1 week coffee's bad. Next week it's great for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but are there vitamins that are out there that can help boost your energy level?
Yeah. And you know what? I promise that next week I will bring out all of mine and discuss it. But right now, though, I want to tell you that you definitely should be taking an all-natural multivitamin.
And why is that?
Well, as opposed to like a synthetic one-a-day, the one-a-day vitamins.
Yeah.
Your body does not recognize that as a natural food source. And so, to put it bluntly, you shit it out.
That was blunt.
Yes. So you definitely need an all-natural multivitamin. And again, I'm going to have to get an affiliate package with these guys, Puritan Pride. But they have, again, I promise to get into more detail on this next week, but they have an all-natural multivitamin. It's called Ultraman for men such as us.
Did you say Ultraman?
Yes.
Like when we were kids, Ultraman?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Yeah. I want to be that guy.
Okay, definitely. So when you get older like us, you definitely need more things like testosterone and so forth, which lessens considerably, by the way, there's a lot of these functional medicine type of clinics that have opened up in the last 10 years or so that do hormone readings on you And by the way, when I said that I will discuss vitamins more next week, first of all, I want to say that I am nowhere near a certified nutritionist. I'm just opening up the conversation and we'll share what I know. The other thing is, men and women are so different in this regard, especially after 50. And I would love to get Lisa on to discuss this because she's very knowledgeable about. She's gone through the hormone ratings, the all of the assessments, the blood work, restrictive diets. She's just had problems as life changes have happened, and she's come out on the other side.
It just seems like for women, it's so much more complicated.
It
I
is.
mean, it just,
That's, I don't even want to talk about it.
No, I know. We're
because I'll be
treading on
sticking
thin ice right now. Yeah.
both like, one inch away from being.
That's a man. Right.
So I will talk about that more next week. And I take about 5 or 6 different supplements, all for very good reason. And so we'll get into that. So I'm excited about this question from Wendy in Philadelphia that you received. You want to share that?
Well, Wendy has been a faithful listener, and thank you for doing that, by the way, Wendy. She was listening to our show. She's listened to every episode, and she's over 50 and as well, like so many of us are. It's sort of the new 30. And, she said, you guys do a lot of talking about careers and what to do with careers going forward when you're 50 and starting over. But what about with relationships? Can you talk about that? She also noted that both of us have significant others, so it might be hard for us to talk about, but it is an important subject because so many people are in that situation. And when you really think about it, it's the relationships that we have that propel us towards success or failure anyhow. I know in my personal life, without Anne Marie, I really crumble in a corner. She's really my support and keeps me going. But, I was single when I was in my 30s, and that was rough, Barry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's hear your take.
Well, I was single most of my life and really enjoyed it. I was just a partier or philanderer. And,
right.
But I did always know that by the time I was getting in the last half of my 30s, I wanted to start settling down. Right. And I think it's incredibly, as you said, it's very important to who we are and what we do going forward. I definitely believe that for the vast majority of people, we're not complete without that other half. And I am happy to say this is very politically incorrect to say that men and women are extremely different.
Oh, yeah.
Most of us anyway, for very good reason. And, men supply one half of the equation, very important stuff, and women supply another half that, frankly, left to our own devices, we don't do very well.
Not at all.
Lisa and I had this conversation like a week ago, and I said, yeah, we'd all be, because I was telling you about the Airbnb work and doing all that. And I'm like, I think pretty much most of us men would just be living under bridges quite happily if it weren't for women. We wouldn't care.
I think you're right. And I think it would also be a very stinky world that we would live in.
I totally agree. So I think that there's a lot of conversation to be had here that you coming from now, you're a very traditionally married person in a very traditional sense. And I think that that's very valuable to talk about. I've been with Lisa for 11 years now in a very committed relationship. However, we're both 53, both never had children, and both extremely independent. So you might want to say that this is a very modern type of committed relationship.
I would agree.
Okay. Then I have a friend, too, that I do a lot of happy hours with. His name's Irby. And his girlfriend, he went from a marriage, got divorced, to a girlfriend that he absolutely loved and adored of 10 years, who passed away of cancer when he was about a week away from his 50th birthday.
Oh.
So he is now, and that was about 2 years ago. So he is now over 50, starting over in that regard. Yeah, and I told him about Wendy's question, And I basically interviewed him for this podcast because I needed somebody's take on, prior to my 11-year relationship with Lisa, her and our story, her and my story are very similar. We both did the online dating. And back then I divided it up. Basically, you had a lot of small player
Right.
websites online, but you had the two big ones, which was eHarmony was the
Yeah.
relationship one,
Right.
and then there was the other most popular one that I cannot think of right
I
now.
don't know the name of it.
And it was like, and it's still out there. It's like a nightclub. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, Tinder.
no, that's today.
No.
That's
Yeah. Okay.
And so today, yeah, I was asking Irby about that, and he said, "Man, he goes, first of all, in a nutshell, I'll say, if you have any relationship whatsoever, hang on to it." He goes, "It's terrible out there."
I would imagine.
Yeah, I know. It's, I guess it depends on who you are and how you take it, because it still is any change is an opportunity, and if you're a person that's been in a relationship your entire life, and for whatever circumstance you now have found yourself single, take the opportunity to meet a lot of new and different people. Be responsible, be mature about it. Don't go out there full of desperation and anxiety because you're going to make a mess of your life. Well, if you have your feet firmly, when you have your feet firmly underneath of you, I think it could be a lot of fun meeting a lot of different people. And I guess, okay, if I were to do it, if I found myself single all over again right now, okay, Irby says you need like 3 different dating apps that you have to triangulate between all 3, because all those
crazy.
same people are on all of them. And
Right.
you're going to get bits and pieces of information from all of these.
Okay,
So-
that's a strategy. I get
So
that.
there's that. I think myself, and it's hard to put myself in this situation without totally being thrust into it, I would probably be doing more things like through Eventbrite or Meetup or stuff like that, where it's more group oriented.
Right.
And mountain hiking groups like that. I would probably try to do that angle, at least at first.
I hear you. What now? Okay, so you're a person that used the dating apps that are out there.
Lisa and I both did, yeah. And they were, and we're talking like 12, 13 years ago here.
Right.
They were a little nightmarish, not horribly, but I'll tell you, and I'd give this advice to this day for sure. I would still take this advice, and that is, I would always do everything. The prerequisite would be a lunch meeting.
Right.
Where
Why
you
lunch?
Because you got an easy out. You don't have the whole night ahead of you where you have all this sexual tension that is either spoken or unspoken and all.
Right.
No, you got things to do, a whole day of responsibilities to take care of. It's an interview, and
Right.
I just think it's a very light version of a date. And I have to use the word maturity a lot here. Here's another thing. I said this to Irby on the phone there yesterday too. I said, if I were thrown out there again right now, you know what I would be very concerned with right away? I'm going to have to get naked with a stranger again. Oh, I don't want to do that now.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah.
For some reason. But here's something. Okay, so this is a big deal in your 50s and your 40s if you're find yourself single and you're dating. A lot of people have children. And that's a big thing to deal with when you're our age. Now, I remember when my father passed away. He was 55. My mother was my age, actually, 53. And so she waited a couple of years, and then she started to date. And here I am, the son. And now I was married myself, but I got to tell you, that wasn't easy for me. I don't know. You'd have to talk to my mother, but it seemed like it was a lot easier for her than it was for me. But there was this male instinct that I think was rising up in me to protect my mother.
Oh,
And of course, I had all of these feelings on the inside of me that no guy was good enough for my mom.
sure.
And this is kind of an interesting thing. So I know that Wendy, the caller, she has a son. She has a young son. So how do you deal with that? I mean, now let me ask you, as a man and you were dating, I'm sure you ran into women that had children. How did you feel about that? What was that like?
That's a great question. I had serious relationships with girls that had children, and I had dates as well. And the couple of serious relationships, I got to tell you, I honestly fell in love with the kids, and I had the good fortune of basically playing stepdad for a while and getting a feel for that. I really, yeah, I think everybody's going to handle that differently, but it was a very positive experience for me.
Now, here's the flip side of that. And this is a tough one for women who have children. And we know also in this day and age, a lot of the time that the children, the mother gets custody. And so she's the primary caregiver. And, here you come, she wants to have a relationship, and here you are, and everything's going great for, 6 months and maybe a year, and the kids get to know you and they feel good. But then something happens in the relationship and a breakup happens.
Yeah.
It's not just her anymore.
For
it's
sure.
her, and those kids could be devastated.
Yes.
So, how do people in this day and age, how does a woman like Wendy protect herself from that type of a situation?
Wow, I would love to get feedback from our listeners on that, because I'm sure that people have been burned by that and have learned from it. Yeah, I'm certainly not qualified for that. I can tell you this, is that I had 2 occasions where I got close with the kids, and I knew that when the relationship, thinking back to Seinfeld would say about, well, a relationship isn't just over. It's like a refrigerator, trying to tip over a refrigerator. You got to rock it back and forth a few times. Well, I knew.
Philosopher.
Exactly. I knew in those situations to not do that. If the relationship was coming to an end, then I was out. And I was not going to mess with these kids' head. And, so that would then fall onto the mother. And that's a very important subject matter that I don't want to take lightly. And I also don't feel that I'm qualified to answer that more fully. So I would love to have somebody write in. And by the way, guys, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can easily comment, that would be fantastic. We'd love to get your feedback. And also, as of today, I finally updated the over50startingover.com site, where right on the homepage, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel or any of our 6 podcast stations. So whatever you prefer. You can also email us at mail@over50startingover.com. Okay, mail at over50starting, and that's 50 written out. Okay, not the numerals. Okay, so Merle,
I just wanted to comment one on that is just, back to the situation with, the woman dating with a child. And I'm with you, Barry. There's no silver bullet on this, but I do believe that the very best thing for anybody to do, whether it's a woman or a man, is having an open dialogue with your children and talking them through this type of thing before even that you're dating, having an understanding with them about what to expect and, how things go out there. And then the other thing too, especially for younger kids, is letting them know that, you love them and that their position in your life is never going to change. I think some of those things cause animosity, tension in the relationships. And I think as long as they're having that type of a conversation.
Here we are. We got disconnected. Sorry about that. I don't recall exactly where you were when we got disconnected. Do you?
I think we were talking about, we were wrapping up on the difficulties and having an open dialogue with your children.
With your children.
I think that's important. And, I guess we could wrap up and just say, hey, it's tough out there, but, like you said, I think there are certain people that are designed to be single and they operate well that way. And there's
very
other
few
people that need to have that person to complete them. And I think either
that's
way
a more
is
natural
okay.
way. It is.
I think it is too.
I agree, because we are in a society now that we no longer have to stay together out of necessity to survive. It used to really be that way. And that's one of the big contributors to so many separations and divorces these days. But I will say this, is to put it in the over 50 starting over context. If you are inclined to wanting that partner who so-called completes you, then you are always missing that piece before you can give your all to whatever your career move is that you're doing. So it's an important, I don't want to say it's a distraction, because I think it's because that makes it sound like a negative aspect to our life, or a missing piece. I think it's a healthy aspect to our life that we should talk about and discuss in a healthy manner. So, and the other thing is about us separating and divorcing so much more quickly. Do understand that more often than not, when we throw in the towel thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, we find ourselves right back into a similar situation because we did not resolve these glaring conflicts within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's where most of our problems stem from. And another thing, our biggest complaints about our spouses are usually what we dislike about our own personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes right from a lot of metaphysical philosophers that I listen to, not to mention psychologists. So that's not coming from me. It's coming from a lot of reading and studies. And I found that within myself. Is like, oh, this is really bothering me about this person or that person. And then take a good hard look inside.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yes.
It works like that every single time. When the thing that you are concerned about within yourself, you tend to judge other people with that same measure, actually even more severely. Is what I've seen.
And to tie this back into our root philosophy about unconditional love being the pretty much cure-all for most things, is in your relationship, if you can bring a little bit more love and compassion into the areas that have been conflict, try showing up differently, and you'll likely see different results. And it doesn't happen overnight. You have to show up differently consistently before your partner will earn a trust that this isn't just yet another one-time fluke where you saw a TV show that inspired you for the day, or what have you. It's if you can identify where you're being difficult yourself, if you can make a concerted effort to show up differently, consistently, things will change.
Interesting. Go ahead.
I'm going to sum it up with my part of this. Respond as you wish. One of the doctors and philosophers and metaphysical people that I absolutely love, that has been very inspiring to me, is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And oh my God, I love that guy. He has done so much for so many people. And
he has.
What he has is he's been able to put very complicated religious and metaphysical ideologies into a very simple, digestible, so that you and I can actually understand this stuff. Like if you've ever read Deepak Chopra or something like that, he's so like, you got to reread it and reread it and reread it. It finally makes sense, really deep. But Wayne Dyer takes exactly that same philosophy, and I only have to hear it one time. I'm like, damn, Wayne, that's good shit, So what he says is, one of his catchphrases was, he passed away a few years ago, which was heartbreaking for many of us. But he would say, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And that is, it's not trick words that sound, it's not like if the glove fit, you must have quit. Just because it rhymes, it's tricky.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
think about it. Change the way you look at things. It means change your perspective, take a different angle, try to look at it differently, and that will change. That relationship will change with whatever the situation is or whatever the person is.
This is a major lesson in life. I mean, this was my story about how my dad told me that I needed to change my attitude.
I remember this
He
story.
had a way of boiling it down to the simplistic and I had the finger in my sternum, with the printing. You need to change your attitude. Yeah, he almost broke my sternum saying that, he crushed me with his finger. Yeah. But he's so right. And it changed my life.
It affected me. Me. I felt like I lived that story because you told it to me so acutely.
I was upset about something that happened at the track practice, and I was the track captain, and I came home just really upset, and I told my dad about it. He used to be a jock, and played football and did everything else too, and I knew he would understand. And when I told him and vented to him, he looked at me right in the eye, and he just, again, with the finger, you need to change your attitude. And he started out by, I know what you need to do. And I was expecting these pearls of wisdom. And then he told me that. And I got to tell you, I inside, I was all over him, man. I was trying to wrestle him down to the ground. But on the outside, I said, okay.
As I recall,
he was way bigger than me.
He was
even
a
wrap
huge
my arms
man.
around him. Yeah.
And he was so intimidating in a respectable way because he was such an accomplished person. But I thought that you said, I can't help the way I feel.
Oh, yeah,
and he goes, yes, you can.
Yeah. It was in a much deeper, echoey voice. Yes, you can. That rocked my world. But I tell you what, he taught me the key to happiness, because any situation you go into, you can change your attitude and you can see the sunshine in that situation, because in every negative situation you run into are the seeds of success. Every terrible thing that's ever happened in my life has turned out to be the greatest blessing in my life, because my dad taught me that lesson. And, we were talking about dating and how to have a successful experience there. And that has everything to do with it. Is just like you're saying, is your attitude about the whole experience. Let go, enjoy yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. Be careful about where you meet people too.
Good one.
Successful relationships can happen in bars, but very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
So my suggestion is go to the places that stimulate you personally. I think the best place to meet your mate is in church. Because you're going to find somebody that believes in the core things that you believe in. Maybe it's not church, maybe it's some type of a club that you belong to, but find some place where there are people that you'll have something very much in common with, because that's where it all starts.
Man, that's a very good point. I recognized, as I told you, I knew that by my mid-30s, I wanted to be shifting out of the single life. I didn't want to be the old guy at the end of the bar,
Right.
And what you said, and I certainly recognize, my most problematic relationships were with people that I met in bars. Yeah. And I definitely, oh boy, you're frozen again. I think we're going to drop this call. No, there you are. Okay, you were frozen for a
minute. We're not going to let that happen. Sometimes I freeze up.
Well, I'm not exactly sure at what time we dropped off the last call. I got to splice these together, so we'll figure out how that happens. Anyways, I would like to talk more about the relationship aspect more in the future as it comes up. As anybody wants to contribute an angle, because I think it's that important. Like we said, if you're feeling incomplete in that role, you're not going to be able to give it all to your career. You're going to be pursuing something else that's missing in there.
It's a higher priority, right?
Absolutely. I just wanted to mention that I think that it'd be nice to do a life hack section over 50 starting over. And I thought of this because I was thinking of tonight I'm going to go to a Toastmasters holiday get together. Briefly, what Toastmasters is, for those that don't know, is it helps you with public speaking. It's a group, is nationwide, I think it's international, that helps you with public speaking, which is the number one fear, even more so than death itself. And let's face it, I don't think there's anyone out there listening to this that could say that they couldn't have benefited from better public speaking skills, because a lot of us have probably dodged certain opportunities because we're just too afraid to push ourselves out in the forefront there. So I joined Toastmasters a few years ago, and I got to tell you, Merle, I never saw anything like it. It gave me confidence in public speaking skills within the first 6 months. It's so quickly, and I really have grown up with lots of different kind of social anxieties. And Toastmasters, there's two different ways that it kind of approaches you, which is really fantastic. And the one is you have to give speeches. You have to prepare speeches, and then you have to present them to your audience. Now, the nice thing about this is you are there with your peers who are very encouraging and very loving. So you're in a very safe environment. So it's beautiful baby steps to get to do that. But the second part of Toastmasters that benefited me more than anything is we call it table topics. And so that's the second half of a Toastmaster meeting. Table topics are when somebody is chosen, you take turns. So somebody's heading up table topics that week, and they bring a particular subject matter. So it might be, of course, around the holidays. It's going to be Christmas, and it's Christmas theme, or I don't know, maybe that would be too insensitive religiously. So I don't know. Let's just say Christmas. And so
I'd rather say that.
Okay. And so you get spontaneous questions. It's like, okay, Barry, come on up front. You don't know what the question is yet.
Oh, I love it.
You got to come up to the front. Pick a number 1 to 10. Okay, because they got 10 questions. 4. Yeah. And then they'll read some question that you have to answer, and you have to try to fill in a minute and a half. Basically, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And sometimes, dude, it's like I'm sitting there in the audience, somebody else gets picked, and you hear the question. It's like, thank God I didn't get picked to answer that question. I would have no idea what to say.
Well, I can also imagine the opposite, where it's like, oh, I wish I would have gotten that question. I'm an expert on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've certainly had those. But my point is that why that Toastmasters has worked so well for me in that regard. I could do a speech. I learned. I took my first speech class in college. When you and I never forget. I signed up for that class months before it was actually to take place. And I was good for that. Like, it would seem like it was never going to happen. So I would sign up for it. Like, all of a sudden it's like, shit, I got a speech class. I'm terrified. And what I learned from that, you and your brother Scott would be my audience and encourage me to keep practicing behind the TV as a podium.
Fun. Yeah.
And the valuable lesson that I learned from that is preparation is key. If you are afraid, nervous, have anxiety about doing something, especially like a preparation. So if it's a speech, a lot of people, and I saw this happen in that class back then, they would turn away from it. They would just be like, oh, I can't deal with it. And then get up there and bomb really badly. Do the opposite. Over prepare. So if you're so afraid up there that your knees are knocking, but you can still on autopilot spew that out, you'll be surprised at what a positive experience that will be, and you'll turn that thing around. For me, my biggest fear throughout all these decades of being in business, being on a board here or there, different networking groups, is when you're sitting at a big table of people that you respect, and spontaneously they go, so Barry, what do you think? And all the heads turn and look at me. That is what always, and then I'd be face turn red and all of this, because I felt put on the spot spontaneously. I wasn't ready for it. So table topics, that helped me get over that. and it did so very quickly. Obviously, what I'm trying to tell you is, as a life hack, if you're finding yourself wanting a career change or in the middle of a career change, and if public speaking has hampered you in that, man, get into tabletop or get into Toastmasters. It will turn that around right away. That's a life hack.
Okay. So now you said you wanted to do this on the show?
Do
is that you the table talk? That's what you started out saying.
No, what I was saying is life hacks.
Oh, life hacks. Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I just gave you a tip that public speaking is a big point of contention.
That's a life hack.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So I would totally agree with you, and I want to add to that is that one thing I saw, and even when you were practicing this speech back in college, I can't even believe how many years ago was that, like 30 years ago or something like that?
Does not seem that long ago.
No, God, I mean, you still look exactly the same. I mean, anyway, I remember what happened is that you knew the speech so well that it allowed you in the moment to be yourself in front of the class. I remember you coming back, and there were some things that happened where you were able to sort of add in some pieces of humor that just kind of happened because of the situation, but it would have never happened had you not had that in your heart. It wasn't in your head anymore. It was in your heart. So now you could speak extemporaneously. And boy, I'll never forget the smile on your face when you came back. That was
such a positive experience.
Oh my God. And look at you now. Gosh, I feel like I have something to do with this, Barry.
Obviously you did. You guys kept encouraging me. Come on, you got to do it one more time. Barry. Practice it one more time. You guys kept doing it. You kept giving me all that positive feedback.
Yeah. And then we cheer at the end.
Yeah, you did. You really did. You guys, man. I told you last time. You guys have had the most substantial positive impact on my life. I couldn't appreciate you more.
Well, one of the things I remember the most about that experience was how much we laughed. We laughed so hard through the whole thing, and it goes back to what we were saying is, you were nervous. In fact, I can say this: I don't think I ever remember seeing you afraid of anything before. That was it. I mean, you were like turned pale. You're telling me that you had to do this, and so anyway, just the whole thing was that you didn't take yourself too seriously. You know what I mean? Like that's what you have to do in order to be successful at anything. Be willing to be humiliated. It's okay. You're not going to be the best all the time. Take this show, for example. I mean, the way that we started out with all the technical difficulties and everything, and, and every week it just keeps getting better. We keep, kind of working out the kinks. That's how you do it.
No, that's really good. Man, I loved what you said. A couple things about, first of all, not taking yourself too seriously. I've been trying to do that my entire life, but somehow after 50, that got a lot easier.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I don't know. There's just a maturity effect. I guess that's it. I'm going to be dead soon.
We don't care what people think.
But it is. And the other thing is be willing to fail. Be willing to fail a lot. Yes. And know that each one of those is just a step towards success.
Right.
And that is really important because people that don't try, it's because of the fear of failure. You got to be willing to fail.
This is true. And what the best people in the world was it Thomas Edison's he had 1,000 different tries at the light bulb until he finally got it to work. I mean,
he said,
think about it. He would have quit on 99.
It was 100. I mean, how old goes, but he was said to have said, I didn't fail 99 times. It was a 99-step process. That's important. That's an important takeaway.
It goes back to attitude, right? Like what we talked about. That was
what you just talked about. Perspective.
And so if you change the way that you look at things, you can change the world. I mean, look at what this guy. I read this book called let's see, Devil in the White City. And it's just this really amazing book about the Chicago World Fair back in the late 1800s, and this big what happened during that. There's so many amazing things happened during this World's Fair. was there was a big showdown between Westinghouse and General Electric on who was going to provide the lighting. And this is where the AC versus DC power and the, I can't remember which one it is where you plug it in the wall, but that's the one that won. And it was General Electric actually won the bid on this, and they lit up this whole enterprise, which the architect for the World Fair wanted to beat out Paris from the last time, because he had this, they did the Eiffel Tower for the last World Fair. So they had to beat this. And if you look at photographs of this World Fair, he built a whole city. Many of the buildings in downtown Chicago are from this World Fair. It's still there. All the museums and everything were built for this fair.
Fascinating.
And they made the whole city white. So at night, General Electric lit this whole thing up, and no one in the world had ever seen anything like this before.
Sure, absolutely.
It was all lit up. It was a jewel. People came from all over the world. There were so many people that were there to see this, that, you know, the president was there. Archduke Ferdinand, the guy that was assassinated that started World War I, he was there. Helen Keller was there. I don't think she saw anything, but she was there. And I mean, everybody. This was the event of events.
Yeah.
You know, and just a side note, Pabst Blue Ribbon, they were the ones that won the beer tasting contest, and that's how they got their name.
No kidding. Oh my God, that's interesting. You want to know what's really interesting is we were talking somehow it came up. We were talking about something on a podcast 1 or 2 times ago. And just the other day, I was like, damn, I got to look up when electricity was invented. And it was like 1868. Think about that. I didn't hear you say something.
I said right, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe we had another technical glitch. But think about that. So you said that fair was in the late 1800s.
It was.
You know, the Wild West, as we know it, was from about 1880 to the 1900s.
Yeah.
20-year span. Electricity was just invented. In like 10 years, they're doing this World Fair. They're wiring up cities at just absolutely astronomical rates. It's amazing.
Oh, it really is.
I have a client that is an electrical safety trainer, and so he's so learned in this regard. And so I was exposed to a lot of this. Man, New York City was a mess during the early 1900s because, you know, they're wiring up this whole city with no codes.
Have you seen pictures of that? Because it's like yarn everywhere. Cat's cradle, you know?
It was burning down all the time.
Yep,
so think about the fire department. Fire departments are nothing like they used to be.
No, they're not.
They used to be the most important thing in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
you know?
because you were going to die if you didn't have them around. Yep.
It is astounding to me. That's what I remember. You said something on a podcast a week or so ago, and I said, "Yeah, man, we were like living in most of us were living in log cabins prior to that." Think of the Wild West days, right before.
Yeah, we were talking about the airplane.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of technological expansion that we've done in such a short amount of time it's mind-boggling. And you know what? I'm not sure where we are on time now because of the technical difficulty that we had. I think we're at about 40 to 45 minutes.
I think we're at 45 right now.
Okay. But we ended the last podcast saying, and you, oh boy, you challenged me here. I said it was a thing. We were talking about technological advancements, and I threw out there, how on earth are we going to be able to employ 360 million people here in the United States as we get more automated and artificial intelligence is really taking over so many things. Dude, checkout lines are being completely automated. Our factories are being completely automated. Customer service with artificial intelligence is going by the wayside for a large part. There's so many things that are being automated, but you were like, dude, I got you there. I can answer that. So take it away, man.
Well, here's the thing is that Just the whole concept of the free market is really where I'm getting this from. And that is that the free market and our liberties are tied together. You can't talk about our liberties without talking about the free market. Well, the free market is what capitalism is really all about. And capitalism is an ever evolving system, and it's always changing. It's always eating itself. In other words, if you start to look at the history of technology, you can see that in living color. We started out with the radio, and then we went to the television, and then we went to the internet, and now we've got interactive television, and now you've got Barry and Merle on a podcast. And right. So this is how the evolution of the free market actually happened. So in that, there's all types of automations that happen. And in that, there's migratory labor forces. In other words, what I'm talking about is that you've got all of these people employed that are working for the radio stations, but then TV starts to take over and radio diminishes. And so what happens to those people that were working in radio? They've got to find something else. That's a natural result of the free enterprise system. And if you take a look, what ends up happening is that the technology that's invented typically lends itself to other types of employment. The age of the computer cut out all types of people's jobs, yet at this very moment we see that the unemployment rate is at the best it's ever been in American history. Mm-hmm. So what now on the flip side is there's something Anne Marie, my wife, she's very concerned about. She hates change. And I
think most of us do.
In capitalism, things change. So, for instance, Blockbuster. Boy, we really loved going over to Blockbuster and getting our movie. I mean, there was a whole experience there that was fun, and buying some popcorn and some candy and everything. And so we remember that. But now, you have it right there. I've got Uverse. I can, what are the movies that I can order this movie or that movie? I got a billion different channels I can watch movies on and everything. And the cable companies are doing great. And nobody's complaining about, the cable company put me out of work. No one's complaining about that.
That's interesting.
So here's my concern is we tend to look at I keep hearing about this whole automation thing and how terrible it is. And the people that I see that are complaining about it the most are the progressives. And here's why I'm concerned about it is because the natural knee-jerk response is going to be, we need to regulate this. We need to eliminate competition. We need to set prices to make sure these people still can earn a living. And what that is, it's like a growing teenager falling into a freezing pool of water and stunting their growth. Every single time the government gets involved to try to save businesses, it stunts the growth of the free market. And so this is exactly why we can take a look at history. We can look at, go back to the New Deal, and you can see how FDR tried to help the farmers back then because they were in such a tailspin from World War I, and he did price fixing. Ultimately, what happened was the farmers lost their farms. The prices were too expensive for people to afford it because they were in the Great Depression. They ended up destroying large amounts of food sources in order to keep those prices where they were, while at the same time people in America were starving to death. Wow. And so that's a government program that one could look at and say, was this genocide? This is what I'm concerned about when we try to tamper with the free market.
Boy, that's timing. I just inhaled something there.
I got you all choked up.
I like what you're saying. To try to simplify that, I'm going to use a metaphor that you started off with. So you're basically saying that as technology changes things, it just changes jobs. And so you were talking about how we used to go to Blockbuster. You could even take that back to even our college days. Hey, we used to actually go to drive-ins You know, even as
Right,
kids,
right.
go to drive-in theater. Wow, that was a big, big thing, man. It was
Sure
okay.
was.
Then we got
It's
to
special.
Blockbuster. Thank God, this is look, we could watch this at home.
Right.
Well, now what you're seeing with a Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all these different channels, think of the explosion of the entertainment industry and how many more people are being employed through all of the different facets
Apps.
of it
Yeah,
and
look at
apps.
the app-driven business. Gosh, Extension Healthcare, the business that I was working for as VP of Sales, that was an app on your iPhone or your Android. And here's a company that suddenly is making literally millions and millions of dollars, changing the face of healthcare, making it safer for patients to go to the hospital, causing people to come home after procedures that may not have lived had they not had this
Yeah.
technology. And what I'm talking about is that as the free market is able to do what it's supposed to do, things actually get better, not worse. If you take a look at the beginning of our country where the free market was really born, because the free market was born here in America,
Mhm.
where the free market was born. And you can see that at that time, and I probably said this before, the lifespan of an average person here in the colonies was about 40 years old.
Yeah.
Today, it's twice that. Has everything to do with the free market. And when the
Sure.
government gets in the way with bureaucratic regulations, especially, it stymies the system, it stymies growth, and it drives up prices. Look at the
Mhm.
price of medications today, and it has everything to do with the Food and Drug Administration and what they're making these drug companies do in order to
Mhm.
simply bring a product to market. They have to
Mhm.
spend, on average, $1 billion. So before they even sell one drug, they've got this $1 billion thing they've got to overcome just by going through the FDA regulations.
Mm.
This is why it costs grandma an arm and a leg just to get her medications. So
Mhm.
we have to take a look at the systems that are out there, especially the bureaucratic systems that really are unconstitutional. They're a leech on our constitutional system, and they're sucking up huge dollars out of your pocket and my pocket.
I couldn't agree more with that. And when you see every other commercial on TV is for a pharmaceutical
That's
medication.
something.
Oh, doesn't it? Who's really running this country?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
the bureaucratic system. The bureaucrats are running the country, and
yeah.
nothing could be more evident than by looking at what's happening with this impeachment thing.
Mm.
Um,
Please segue right into that because we are about out of time, I
yeah,
think. And
I think you're right.
yeah, so go ahead, tell me
Yeah,
what's.
so first off, I got to say this, and I hope that people are looking at this because I have a sneaking suspicion that people have tuned out because, quite frankly, I think for average people, this is really boring stuff. But for
It really
people
is.
that have really, I'm a lover of the Constitution, our founding documents. I'm a huge fan of our American history and our just everything about it. This is one of the most fascinating times in my life for as
Yes.
far as politics goes. This is really interesting, and what we're doing right now, to me, is that the American constitutional system is having its biggest test it's had since the Civil War. And what we're seeing here is how, if like Lincoln said at the Gettysburg Address, we're going to see if this American experiment actually works. And when the IG report came out this week, I believe that most people haven't read it. It's
Sure.
500 pages, but I also believe that this is, for me, a vindication that the system that the founders put together still works. And I read the first 19 pages, the executive summary of the IG report. And here's the thing that made me angry was that the news media was coming out and saying that Comey and the rest of them had been vindicated by this IG report. And if you read the executive summary, you would know that that is absolutely 180 degrees opposite of what the IG report is saying. And if you read, Comey did a victory lap when it came out saying, see, it was all lies. There was no spying. We didn't use the dossier to set this whole thing up. This was all lies made up by Trump. Well, the IG report says exactly the opposite, that there were spies that had been embedded into the Trump organization, that the Steele dossier, Steele himself was somebody that the FBI didn't trust, that his credentials for in the dossier going into the FISA report was not even legal by their, and I say legal, but by their own procedural rules that didn't qualify. They had uncorroborated information on the Steele dossier that they knew about. They had altered information regarding Carter Page, saying that he was not involved in our intelligence services when he actually was doing work for the CIA and had been reporting it to another intelligence agency. And that was the Russian that he was talking about that started this whole investigation in the first place. In other words, the CIA had him talking to a Russian, and the FBI came in and said, hey, you're talking to a Russian, and they started this whole investigation. Well, the CIA had him talking to the Russian in the first place. This is how the whole thing started. And when you start to look at all the lies and deceptions and omissions, and they're saying they were omissions and mistakes, but when you put them all together, those 17 errors and omissions, they're devastating. There's no possible way that this could happen by omissions and mistakes. And if you believe that, I've got some swampland for you. Here's the big deal, Barry, is that, we could look at this and say, oh, who cares? But the big deal is this, is that they're systematically stealing the liberty that you and I have.
That's what I'm worried about.
And the thing is that if they do this to the president's attorney, to the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, if they're doing these things to them, they can easily do them to us. And the last thing I want to say is this whole thing with Adam Schiff and how he was able to subpoena the phone records for Devin Nunes, Rudy Giuliani, and a journalist. And, here's the thing. They've got President Trump up on abuse of power for impeaching him. And this is abuse of power. What gives Adam Schiff the right to subpoena the phone records of the president's attorney? The president has attorney-client privileges. What gives him the right to not only get the phone records of the ranking member of the intelligence community, but also they're co-members of that intelligence committee? And he not only was he able to get this person's personal phone records, but he put it into the intelligence committee report that went over to Jerry Nadler's group. And the rules that the House had voted on for the impeachment was that before anything gets sent over to another committee, it has to be reviewed with the ranking member. That would have been Devin Nunes. So Adam Schiff was supposed to review that with Devin Nunes before it was sent to the Judicial Committee, which he didn't do. Obviously, he didn't do it because he put Devin Nunes's information in there and tried to smear him that way. But here's the thing is, if they can get all of their phone records, then how easily, like if they don't like your political opinion, Barry, then I can, if I'm Adam Schiff, I can get your phone records. I can also manipulate them like they did to Trump's records and say that it meant something else and put you away for life. That's what I'm afraid of.
There's so many disturbing things right there that you unpacked. And Edward Snowden is living in Russia as a result of that right now.
That's right.
And he brought to light how we passed the Patriot Act because of the terrorist attack in 2002. So we surrendered our freedoms somewhat voluntarily as a result. And as our communications industry exploded during this time, the government strong-armed all of them into all of these unconstitutional regulations where they do have access to basically all of our personal information at a very deep level. And so this is deeply disturbing. There's so many things that the whole proceeding of the impeachment thing. Now, we could go back as far as the Clinton administration and discuss how that took place. I found that disturbing from the Republican angle as well. But right now, today, in the last 3 years, I've seen Hillary get away with bleaching servers, the amount of criminal activity she's gotten away with there. I don't understand it, how she really did. And then immediately thereafter, Bill Clinton is found to be having a private meeting with the Attorney General on that tarmac. And that was like coercion and obstruction of justice, to say the least. Nothing happens to him. We get into the Kavanaugh hearings where these women are brought up lying about what happened, the sexual allegations. As far as I know, nothing ever happened with them. And then there's Hillary with the DNC, where they rigged the election so that Bernie would not win, so that they'd ensured Hillary's nomination. As far as I know, nothing happened then.
Oh yeah, now there's a string of this. John Brennan in front of Congress said that they did not use the dossier to set up the FISA investigation. The IG report proved that Brennan lied to Congress. He perjured himself. Is anything going to happen to him?
No. Well, and how much more egregious than this? Adam Schiff was guaranteeing for at least 2 years that he had guaranteed us he had evidence of Russian collusion.
He did several times.
Yeah, he did say that. But he did
over and over. Right. He said it over and over. Yep.
And okay, he always looks like a deer in the headlights up there now.
He does.
But nobody faces consequences. This worries me, Merle.
Well, here, Barry,
really worries.
Here's what I believe is that, so we've got this IG report out. It is devastating, but the grand slam is about to come up with this Durham report that he's working on. Barr has this attorney Durham. It's a criminal investigation. It didn't turn into a criminal investigation until Durham went overseas in his investigation. And if you heard Barr speaking over the last few days, he's letting signals out that there's some people that are probably looking at jail time. And I got to say, I think Comey, Clapper, and Brennan are the first guys to be really sweating. And those guys are so brazen. I mean, they're in the news now. McCabe as well. These guys are all in big trouble, and they're all in the news just brazenly saying, no, it's all lies. It's all lies. The IG report vindicated me. And they're betting that you and I aren't going to actually read the IG report. That's why I read it. The summary does a great job of telling you what's in that 500-page report. I would recommend every American read that.
But you honestly think that they're going to face consequences? This is what worries me. I don't see that people are facing consequences.
It's a criminal investigation. That means they have evidence of criminal wrongdoing, and that if you look at the IG report and read those 19 pages, it is a cluster of amazing just ineptness and corruption. You can't look at that. Now, the IG is going to say, oh, well, we didn't find evidence of actual corruption. They just made mistakes and oversights. And when we asked them, why they made they said, well, we don't know. We didn't know. We didn't know this was wrong. We didn't know this evidence. Come on. The only person that's going to believe that is another bureaucrat. Horowitz is a bureaucrat. And this is like, my analogy is that my dad worked for the phone company. If I ever said anything bad about the telephone, man, I almost wouldn't get dinner. I mean, you could not say anything bad about the phone.
Sure.
And so this is the same way. These people are lifelong bureaucrats. If you say something about another bureaucrat, well, that could jeopardize your cushy position in the bureaucracy.
And that gets
fired.
That gets right back to expressed my admiration of Tulsi Gabbard because she's so anti-establishment.
Right.
And right there, you just explained how you see it on so many different levels, the absolute need to keep that establishment in place. That so much so, the Democrats would turn their back on it. A woman who is non-white race, and a veteran, and yet they still will turn their back on and oppose her because, oh my God, she's against the system. But
the irony of ironies to me is that if you take a look at the IG report, you can see that there was a concentrated effort by one party, in particular one candidate, with lots of backing to manipulate the outcome of the 2016 election. And we can see bribery, we can see extortion, we can see spying, wiretapping. We can see a lot of illegal activity that's happening involving other countries, soliciting other intelligence services of other countries. Mm-hmm. All of these things are the things that they're trying to impeach Donald Trump over, yet Donald Trump didn't do any of those things. He was the victim. Now, I'm all for putting somebody away if they've committed an egregious crime. I don't want that in my leadership. And if it's Donald Trump, prove it to me, and I'll be all for impeachment. Mm-hmm. But if not, and you take a look at the economy the way it is, you take a look at all of the things that he ran on, and he's made progress or accomplished everything he's ever run on. I've never seen that in my life where a president actually does what all the things he said he was going to do. If you
hasn't built that wall.
Well, he sure has worked on it, and the only thing that stopped him is, I mean, look at the forces that have tried to stop him, and yet he has built here in California. He's extended the wall greatly, and this is the hardest place to do it. So I gotta say,
I totally understand and agree with you. I would absolutely love for the next 4 years to be with somebody that is more respectable again. But I agree that there's been an awful lot of progress, but I want to get away from the goddamn circus and get back to respectability in our politics. But we're so far gone.
We are. I don't know how we get back.
No, I agree. And that's why I like, at this point, Tulsi Gabbard. But we are probably a few minutes over. I just want to end on a lighter note, and I wanted to say, what do you think of, I'm looking at a headline here, Greta Thunberg is Time's 2019 Person of the Year. What do you think of that?
Well, I think you should be Person of the Year. You've done more than she has for the world. I mean, what has she actually done besides complain?
Well, first of all, I think she's a pawn of some very liberal adults.
I feel sorry for her. Yeah.
Far
I feel
left.
like she's...
Oh, she's a pawn.
Yeah, they've ruined her little life. I mean, look at her. She's afraid. She sees the world as it's gonna. What a miserable life for this poor little girl. And Time Magazine, it just makes me wonder what they're thinking over there. Hitler was Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1939.
Is that right? I didn't know that. Who nominated Caitlyn Jenner Woman of the Year? Is that Time?
This
is like the same thing. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I was in Starbucks the other day, and she says, "Oh yeah, Jenner was here," and I said, "Oh, Bruce," and she goes, "No, Caitlyn."
Dude, okay. You can get kicked off Twitter for saying that. There's a term for it.
I know, whatever it is, it's egregious, and
but O.J.
Simpson got kicked out of Starbucks.
Yeah, but O.J. Simpson's on there with his show every day, like, "Hey, Twitter world, it's O.J." Yeah. Oh, geez, what a world we live in. All right, we better sign off, dude. All right, talk to you next week. Great show. I'll piece it together. We'll see what we got.
All right, sounds good, Barry.
All right, see you guys. And please sign up, subscribe. Leave us some comments, leave us some questions, and you're supposed to do our sign off.
And, if you have any, Wendy's suggestion was great. Anything like that, we want to hear about it. That sounds great. And again, we are over 50, startingover.com. You can log into anything that, any of the venues that we're on, like us on all of the venues, and make comments.
Yeah, give us a 5-star, please. Okay, see you next week. See you, Merle.
Bye, Barry.